Hi, welcome back. I'm Ralph Rinaldi, your host for the Economics for Inclusive Prosperity podcast. These days, a lot of things keep me up at night, and I'll bet most of you joining us can relate. One of the big ones is the uncertain future facing my three kids, who are all in college or grad school. Pretty soon, they're going to face a challenging job market that'll potentially be made worse by AI. The cost of living is up, housing is painfully expensive, and future homeownership seems more like a cruel fantasy than the American dream. And they know it's tough out there. In fact, they've lived their entire lives in a world that's been getting progressively less economically equal. They know the system's broken, and they know that every day it gets stacked more against them. Our guest today, Boston College economics professor John Erbil, says those are pretty common worries among his students too. That's why he's been working on ways to integrate teaching about economic inequality using empirical data and real world case studies into even the most basic economics courses. He says it's important both for economics majors, many of whom now have to seek out inequality studies in elective courses, and for students for whom an introductory econ class might be their only exposure to the field. The goal, he says, is to help students become engaged citizens and informed voters who want to shape a future that they'll want to live in. So let's get started. So, John, welcome to Economics for Inclusive Prosperity. It's nice to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be here.
So, I really like this conversation that we're going to have because it really goes to the core of what Economics for Inclusive Prosperity is all about, which is kind of about coaxing the prevailing outlook in the field of economics towards a definition of prosperity that's more inclusive. Can you start us out by just talking about how the current moment that we're in is a particularly important time to talk about economics education, and especially education about economic inequality at that sort of like basic entry level?
Thank you. First, allow me this opportunity. I think economic inequality has always been an important topic. Firstly, I want to emphasize that it's nothing new. But why now? Why is it more important than ever? I think there are a couple of reasons. One of them is slowly my students, as well as everybody else, is starting to realize that in many parts of the world, especially in the developed parts of the world, we don't necessarily have a problem of production. We see the pizza pie growing, but there is also growing dissatisfaction with the economy. If you look at our macroeconomic numbers, everything should be good. I mean, we should be happy. But if you also look at um, the indices that measure how happy the consumers are, how satisfied the agents of the economy are, you see a disconnect. You see that those big numbers, the indices that we described, the big picture, do not necessarily represent uh, what's happening in the lives of economic agents like you and me and my students. So um, the reason of that, the main reason of that is there is a increase in the pizza pie, but not necessarily in the slices that you and I get to enjoy. And that's a moment where we have to explain to the students and the general audience too. So when I say students, it's not only the students in my classroom, um, that this we can do better. There are ways to improve on the current what we call equilibrium or the steady state, as if I may use some of the econ jargon and econ language here. And on top of that, uh, we have a new disruptor, exciting. but something that is changing everybody's lives. So there is a big potential and warning signals that this new technology may take the inequality in the wrong direction. So that's why I think this moment is right to have this
Yeah.
conversation.
So you've been doing this for 30 years, right? How would you compare your students of, say, that early period of the late 90s with the ones today? Because I just actually, before we talked, had a really interesting conversation. I'll sort of work it in throughout our time with a economics major, an undergrad here at Harvard, where I'm based. Um, and it was really interesting to see things through their eyes. I mean, like a lot of, the younger cohort, she's grown up in a world that has always been growing progressively less economically equal. There's been no period in her life when things weren't getting more economically unequal. And now she's and a lot of her fellow seniors are staring down the barrel of a very difficult job market as they're going into, made increasingly uncertain by AI. Um, are you seeing the same things? And what are your students saying to you?
I'm definitely seeing the same things. There is a lot of uncertainty. So I'm both talking to my students and also talking to my former students. As you said, it's tough to believe, but I've been doing this the last 30 years. I started teaching when I was 5 years old. So many of my former students are now at a position to hire my current students. So I try to also leverage that, reminding them I wrote them a recommendation letter. It's time to pay the favor by hiring one of my current students. And there is uncertainty on both sides. On one hand, the industry, the companies, they are aware that uh, they cannot really pause this. I'm not hiring anybody, especially junior workers, for too long. But they don't know, so they are playing. Let's wait and see how this disruption going to be bringing us to a new steady state, to a new level. Where are we going to be ending? So both sides are waiting. My students are nervous. I must say that you know, currently I'm teaching at Boston College, and many of my students, I'm teaching a class for only seniors. They have jobs, secure jobs. But even if you have a job, you are still nervous thinking about, you may lose your job first in, first out. Um, so the uncertainty that AI brings is real. It's there. It's in everybody's conversation. Even in social environments, when we engage with each other, that's the number one topic that everybody is talking about. So in that sense, um, I have never experienced anything like that in my lifetime. But if you think about the the profession of economics is social science. We are relatively new, and it started as more like a political economy, big thinking, philosophy. If you think about the early just, forefathers of economics, all of them had ideology and philosophy that shaped what we call economics today. And then over time, this big political economy idea started to become more and more empirical. The field became really technical. Um, uh, to give you an example, I represent the economics department at Boston College on the Admitted Eagles Day. These are students and families who are accepted at Boston College and who will start next fall, and they are wondering what do we do at the Department of Economics. And I describe them economics as a social science, and I tell them like not many people really know what we do, but you know what engineers uh, crunch numbers, find the result like 5, and they build a bridge with it. That's what engineers do. And economists, we are doing similar. We crunch numbers as hard as the engineers. We find a number like 5, and then we talk about it. So we say, should it be 4? If it's 6, is it better for the society? Well, that part has to do also with the normative and the values that is not necessarily captured by this pure empirical approach. So what I'm seeing more and more is that we are ending up somewhere maybe at a good synthesis of both. For a while, economics has been purely technical, mostly focusing on models and numbers. We were, when we got the number 5, we were talking about it is the absolute truth, which we know it is not. And I think the discussion about inequality, opportunity inequality, the future of these young people in the job market, the anxiety, the uncertainty is going to trigger even more discussion that goes beyond just these numbers, concrete numbers of 5 and
Right.
just pure empirical approach.
Right. But you've written that other disciplines like sociology, political science, history, even English can teach about inequality, but that economics may be the best suited discipline for doing so, or one of the best. And partially it is because of the empirical capabilities of the field. Can you talk about why economics is, if it's applied in the correct way, can be particularly well suited to really explain inequality?
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. So, inequality is one of those big questions, similar to climate change, where people struggle a lot to understand it because it's a very big question, and you can approach it from many different angles. And there is a lot out there. And there is, in addition to empirical research, there is also very confident opinion pieces out there uh, that have that go beyond economics and are more on the political domain. So the way that I tackle inequality in particular, um, and I should here cite my colleague Jeffrey Sansenbauer. I did co-teach with him the first iteration of the course that I teach. Is basically first starting with standardized facts. So making it very concise, looking at the inequality that is very well defined, that nobody can argue with the side aspect. To give you an example, if I tell you I am 5'8", and you will know that you can come and measure and say, is that correct or not? And as much as I like Celtics, I will not probably play in the Celtics team with my height. So this is a stylized fact. There are exceptions. Azure Thomas did that, but there are, nobody can agree with disagree with the stylized fact. So we always start with that instead of starting with a political disagreement or with the big question. We start with something small, and then I ask my students, do you see the gap? Do you see the inequality? We look at over time, we look at sometimes between countries. And once we agree, yes, there is an inequality, there's a gap here, then the next question is also very important. We ask, do we care about this? Because some inequalities are actually not that bad. Maybe it is due to productivity. Maybe it is something that is even designed. So we don't want everything to be uniform. So the next question, once we say, okay, Do we care about this? Um, then I bring them to the economic literature. I tell them, okay, if we care about this, probably some other people did too. And did they look into this question and did they find answers? Why is there inequality between male and female workers for the same job? Why is one of them getting $1, the other one 80 cents? And I walk them through the economic literature and I tell them, okay, this is what the economic literature thinks about it. And then we also go to the normative side. Um, which ones of these are acceptable? Which ones of these are due to discrimination and it's not acceptable? Once we agree on that, the last step is, okay, what can we do about it? So that's the policy part. And I think there we have to be careful. Economists are really good in crunching the numbers, exactly as you say, defining the inequality, maybe studying the reasons behind the inequality. But when it comes to a remedy, a policy that will affect people's lives, um, we can help design the policy, we can help assess the impact of the policy, but there are also ethical issues. There are also issues that go beyond economists. Even though economists would like to put their nose in everything, it is a fact that we do not know everything. And we need the help of our colleagues from sociology, from exactly as you said, from philosophy, from ethics. So these policies that will affect our lives should be designed with a collaboration with all of them. And that is one criticism that economists get very frequently. If we actually cross that boundary and start to make very definitive claims on the topics and on the subjects that we are not licensed to make those claims, that some of the criticism that we receive is well earned. I think this is mentioned a lot in my colleague Danny Roderick's Economics Rules book, which I use in one of my classes.
Yeah. It's interesting. I did want to follow up on this because I think it's very interesting how students come in. I was wondering about your experience with this as an instructor, because students are not the same. I mean, they're coming in with different attitudes and different values based on their upbringing and sort of their lived experience. So you have very different. I mean, I work at Harvard, right, and you work at BC. We have a significant portion of kids who come in who are children of generational wealth. And then we have a significant portion of people from the exact opposite side of the socioeconomic spectrum. And they may not view inequality in the same way or with the same level of urgency. How do you sort of correct for that you have different you have different sort of sets of values coming into your class? How do you calibrate your discussion of those values to account for that?
That's also an excellent question. It's not only about inequality. On every topic in economics, I try really hard to think about, okay, I am excited about this as an economist. I'm a nerd of this profession. I just get up and the first thing that I do is I open the economic news and I enjoy reading them. I enjoy analyzing them, but not all of my students are same as me. In a class of 300, maybe 5 of them are going to be continuing to study and research in economics as deeply as I do. So what I try to do is whenever I teach any segment, including inequality, but also something like inflation, I think, how can I make this relevant to my students? This is including Harvard students, but I also taught Boston College students. Even though inflation may not be impacting their life, or inequality, they think that it's not impacting their life. I try to find an angle telling them it actually does. And for inequality, I do a couple of things. One of them is that I emphasize that it's not a zero-sum game. So it's not redistribution. It's not kill the rich or like get money from the rich and give it to the poor, and that's going to fix inequality. Uh, that's not the case. Actually, there's a great TED talk that I use in my classes by Professor Wilkinson, who empirically shows that more equal societies, and this goes also for rich societies, are happier, and they thrive in many different ways that we care about. Um, and I also tell them anecdotal evidence from countries where you have this huge gap between the rich and the poor. Uh, there's also a lot of social unrest. There's also a lot of resentment. Uh, you're a rich person. You live in a beautiful house. You have a very nice, expensive car, but you live in a gated community and you are not sharing this prosperity with other people that, basically is deducting from the happiness that affects everybody, rich or poor in that society. So that's the one thing that I'm trying to show them. Again, empirically with data, that many things that make us happy are less correlated with the income per capita and more correlated with the inequality, especially for the richer countries. Um, that's number one. Number two, I'm trying to give examples to the students from their own life. Let me tell you something that I enjoy doing. When I was teaching inflation, this was about 5-10 years ago, when in the United States, inflation was pretty flat and there was not much talk about inflation. So it was not a very sexy topic to talk. I was spending the summer back in my home country in Turkey, and I interviewed an 18-year-old high school senior at a beautiful beach on the Aegean coast at the sunset. So you can hear the waves, and then you can see the full moon rising in the back. There are people playing volleyball, beach volleyball. It's beautiful.
That
And
sounds nice.
it is beautiful. And I recorded this with a virtual reality camera. So, you can actually be there. You can see everything yourself. And the 18-year-old student is telling me that he worked the entire year while going to school to save money to leave the country for good. He wants to go and study in Poland. And he was telling me, because the inflation in Turkey was so high that he couldn't do anything that a normal teenager takes for granted. And he was giving a long list of, I cannot do this, I cannot go to a music concert. And this is a 4 or 5 minute segment that I edited and I played in my class. And all of my students, I could see their ears perking up, and they were. These are things that they do without thinking. Uh, they go to concerts, they enjoy their life as a teenager, and they could hear how something as boring as inflation actually changes lives of other young people on the other side of the globe. So I think that's a strategy that I have been employing also for inequality. And for inequality, I rely a lot on Raj Chetty's Opportunity Atlas. And that's one of my assignments for my students. I tell everybody, okay, go back to your zip code. And I ask them to study some of the inequality pockets around their home. And it's been transformative for some students especially those who are coming from rich neighborhoods, when they discovered that there is very close to their homes pockets of inequality where, if they were born somewhere like 2 miles south or 2 miles north, uh, their life and the projection of their economic future could be completely different.
Right. So it's interesting you mentioned Raj Chetty because it takes me back to my conversation with my little friend who's the senior at Harvard and the economics concentrator or majors as a major as non-Harvard colleges call them. And she actually took an inequality course from Raj Chetty, but she mentioned it by way of saying that she really had to seek out. Really felt she really had to seek out it, courses about inequality and teaching about inequality within the economics concentration. And I had asked her to sort of remember back to when she was the first year and she was taking the introductory courses, and she said that in her memory, inequality, the amount of inequality education they got in those courses was two things. One, it was not proportionable. She didn't feel it was proportional to the level of equality in the world. The importance of how it was taught was not commensurate with how important it is as an issue in the real world, but also that when they were taught about it, the models that they used were kind of abstract and difficult to learn. They weren't based in the real world. So that's sort of a long-winded way of getting to what you've written about introductory economics courses, because that's been a particular focus for you. Can you just um, walk me through why you think that introductory economics courses need a module or a component of inequality? Is it because they set the tone for a continued economics education, or is it because for some students it'll be maybe the only economics course they ever take, or is it both? Tell me why you think that introductory course is important.
I think you nailed it. I think the biggest reason is that for many students who are not econ majors, it is one of the only economics course that they take. And what they remember from that course is profit maximization, representative agents, something very abstract that is not related to the real world. And, many of them, even, very educated and very high level individuals, even some of them who became academicians later in other departments, their perception of economists are really skewed because that's what they remember as what economics says, that we are all market worshippers and profit maximizers. And I think this is a big disservice. If you really look at the research that's going on in any economics department, just pick any randomly, you're going to see that 99% of what we study is marketing failures and market imperfections. And we know that this, perfect competition and, it doesn't hold in real life. But on the other hand, we do need to teach those. Those are benchmarks. Without really understanding those, the fundamentals of the models, what we build everything on, we cannot teach anything else. They will not be able to understand uh, anything else without understanding those benchmarks. So I think we should continue to teach the basic theory and the benchmark with, again, models and the rigor that economics requires. We do use math. It's not because we want to show off, saying, "Look how much math I can do." It's because our common language in economics. It's easier to describe things. But I think in every economics course, we should also, at least, like I do that in every lecture, once I finish the benchmarks, I will tell my students, okay, let's go to the real world. Okay, I mean, this is your benchmark. And let's also look at what's happening in the real world. And does this model hold? And what can it explain and what can it not explain? Where are its limits? And it's a little bit disclaimer, a little bit making sure that what I know and what I take for granted, the students don't know. And I know this. And when we teach, sometimes we don't even think about it. We say, yeah, we know this doesn't hold. But I think we have to articulate it. We have to tell it out loud so the students who will never, some of them will never hear this, register that. And in addition to that, we also should tell them, if you like this, or if you are passionate about this topic, or if you are questioning this, and if you want to take another economics class, here is the one where you can study the imperfections, the impact of that, maybe the policies. So I use these opportunities both as a connection to real world, as a disclaimer, but also as a hyperlink to upper level classes, elective classes. Not all of them are taught by the economics department, as you said. Many of our colleagues from other parts of the academia also are researching and teaching inequality.
Yeah, actually, I think that's personal to you, right? The effect of an introductory economics course, because you've said that your own introductory economics professor was a major influence on you. Who was that professor, and how did he end up helping put you on this path?
Um, as many things happened by coincidence, it was a really nice coincidence that changed my life. I got my undergraduate studies in Istanbul, in a formerly American college, and all the education was in English. My introductory professor, Professor Demir Demirgin, was one of the giants in the Turkish economics academia. I was his last student. He passed away after the semester he taught to us. And we were, Istanbul is built on two continents, on Asia and Europe. We were both living on the Asian side, and many mornings he was actually picking me up. I was hitchhiking to the European side, and he was bringing me to the university, and we were having a conversation in the car. I remember
Wow.
he had a Volkswagen a bug, yellow bug, and I learned a lot from him. He took even a first-year student seriously. We talked about economic thoughts, and the way he teaches, I'm still trying to reach that level. This was before internet. This was before anything. No AV in the classroom, but still, the clarity, the way he was connecting real life to economic theory is something that I'm still trying to achieve. So yes, it's personal to me.
That's great. Getting back to those real world, that they're sort of using the real world as a teaching tool to engage students. It was interesting because I read that was a component also of a recent editorial by a student in the Harvard Crimson, which is a student newspaper, a junior social studies major, and his proposal was an ethics course, right? Because he thought, um, he looked at the percentage of seniors. I think it's something like a little over 20% who are going into finance, and if you add consulting in, that's like 35%. And he was sort of disturbed by that, just sort of socially, and he thought, well, this kind of cries out for an ethics course. What do you think of that idea of an ethics course versus, say, this teaching inequality and or maybe it's not an either or, teaching inequality in a introductory class.
Uh, this is very close to my heart because I teach that class. I teach a graduate level class that is titled Ethics, Economics, and Public Policy.
Wow.
And um, since it's graduate level, I can do things a little bit differently than in an undergraduate class. So we pick topics that students are genuinely interested in. I put them in teams, and each team has to study the three aspects of that burning question. Maybe AI, it may be data centers, and maybe the impact of the data centers to the environment. So we first formulate the question, and then we have sub questions for economics. So how big the market is, who is making money out of this. So we formulate those, and then we have questions about ethics. So for that, I teach a short segment of ethical frameworks to my students, and I try to teach it like in a practical way that they can apply to real life cases. So how an economist would think. I teach them three ethical frameworks, and they they need to work within those three frameworks. And does it comply? Does it conflict with any of the ethical frameworks? And then lastly, we do the same thing. We say, okay, we understand this is a big problem from the point of view of economics. There's a big market. People are both producing and consuming this. There are some ethical issues that we need to address. What are some of the policies that can actually address that? We talk about regulation, we talk about innovation. I've been teaching that course for the last 5 years. And it's one of the courses that where I also learn a lot from my students. It's in a seminar format. And the entire class does joint research on all the subjects, but a subgroup of the students became more like the experts, and they curate and they make a presentation back to the class. So what your student is proposing is, I think, an excellent idea. I think at least a segment of ethics, along with inequality, uh, could make a big difference in the perspective of our students and future leaders of the industry.
Right. So you've proposed as a part of an introduction class, basically a 2-lecture module for every introductory economics course. And you've said it should have several important attributes. It should be data driven, should be based on cutting edge empirical research. It should be relevant to students, and it should include an empirical component. Can you sort of tell me how that works? How do you achieve that in in 2 lectures? And what sort of what fact sets you might use to create that um, module?
Um, I will give you the short answer, and for the longer one, I will refer everybody to our paper at Economics for Inclusive Prosperity.
We will have a link to that in the show notes for sure.
The short answer is before COVID, I was partnered with uh, Atlas Opportunity Atlas, the institute that Raj Chetty founded. And they wanted to expand their Harvard course that we mentioned to other institutions. So they already created some modules. One of the modules that I mentioned in the paper is the module that I tweaked for my institution, but I worked together with Opportunity Atlas on that, my colleagues there. So this is exactly what I told before. Students go and do a little bit of research about their own zip code. And this is an empirical research, so they report back. The way that tool is designed is also very intuitive because it gives you not only numbers, but also color-coded maps that they can use in the report back. That has been getting really positive feedback from my students. Um, there are also other ways that I mentioned in the paper, other modules that could be added. It's a little bit of a personal choice of the professor, how empirical they want to do this, or if they are teaching in a different institution where the mathematical rigor is not as high, they may also choose more anecdotal or more qualitative modules than quantitative modules. That's also something that is, can be perfectly acceptable pedagogy and would also work for different type of students. But I understand the challenge. We used to have a separate principles of micro and principles of macro. Now we merged all of them together. We have principles of economics, and we are trying to teach everything in one semester. Now, some of my colleagues are telling me, on top of that, you're putting like inequality. How are we going to fit this in one semester? I do understand that there is some trade-off, but the way I deal with it is, I think inequality is more important than maybe some of the niche macro parts that we can push into the intermediate macro, where students who will continue with their econ majors will be exposed anyway. Um, Another way to think about this is separating the principles of economics into two tracks, one for economics majors only, and where the rigor is high, and then the introduction of the inequality can be more empirical, more quantitative, and the other one that students who will never see economics before, but they want to understand some basic fundamentals, and we can use a different module in that track.
Right. So you've also said that in that first, I think the first lecture of that module that you envisioned, it was also a way to help separate, because your students sometimes have a hard time separating the signal from the noise, fact from, sort of empirical fact and data-driven, scientifically sound research from, what's basically opinion, and that there are certain basic sort of economic facts which touch on inequality that you really need to get across. Basic things like stagnant median male wages, the persistent gender wage gap, the racial wage gap, the rising income share of the top 1%, and like correlation between parent and child income. What is establishing those as empirical facts? What does that help the students when they leave the course? What does that help them with?
Um, Another excellent question. These are based on my colleague Jeffrey Sanzenbacher's book. It's six stylized facts to understand the basics of inequality. It starts with looking at earned wage differences in just male earners in the United States, and you look at the top 25% and bottom 25%, and then you look over time what happens and how the top is getting better and the bottom is completely stagnant and is going back even before I was born, the last 60, 70 years, you don't see any movement there, which is when you put that graph in front of the students, you don't have to really tell much. They can see there's some story here to be told. So we start with that. Then we also look at the same thing for women, and they see that there's a little bit of a different trend for women. There's still the same gap between the the top and the bottom, but there is a collective gain for all the females, and we asked her what happened in the last 50, 60 years. We explained where this collective gain comes from. Then we look at, okay, how about the difference between black and white, both for male and female, and then even on the household level. And then the students there also see the parallel lines. So that gap between black and white earners in the United States, regardless of your gender, has been the same. We have not made any progress, zero progress over the years. So when you have very simple stylized facts that everybody can understand without requiring technical background or high-level economics. And it is important to understand that these are not coming from econometric papers. This is raw data. And the source of the data is available to the students. So they can go play with it themselves. They can withdraw the data. They can look at the data themselves. So they know that this is not an opinion piece. This is not massaged data. So I didn't torture the data to tell the data what I wanted the data to say. This is what we call stylized fact. So, and once you have all of those, then we also look, okay, let's look at the top 1%, 0.1%. And then that's also very apparent. What's something that's happening there that's like very unique also to United States. You see that in other countries too, but in the United States, it is much more pronounced. And then lastly, more difficult to explain, but we look at opportunity inequality. If you have the same skills, same talent, you work hard as much as the other person, but your circumstances are different. You were born in a different zip code. The color of your skin is different. Your gender is different. Your parents were rich or poor. And these are things that are not under your control, but they affect you. And we talk about American dream, which we said, okay, with opportunity inequality being low, all of these circumstances didn't matter that much. You could actually achieve the American dream when you work really hard. But, some of our colleagues, this is, I think, in Professor Wilkinson's TED Talk, now say if you want to achieve the American dream, you have to go to Scandinavia. It became much more difficult to overcome this opportunity inequality. And the mobility, intergenerational mobility, is decreasing in the United States. But not only in the United States, I also do a master class for students who are joining from all over the world with the Aspire Leaders Program. We talk about inequality there too.
Great. Well, we're almost out of time, but I did want to ask. So, say in a lovely, perfect world, every introductory economics course adopted Professor Erbil's module for teaching inequality. What would your hope be for a desired outcome of that?
That's a great question too. Sometimes even when we teach an entire course of inequality and students are excited about it, they understand, they say, okay, we are sold, sign us up. Then they ask me, so professor, what would you like me to do? And some of them even ask, should I become a socialist? I mean, or what are, is that why you have been teaching this course? They go to ideology. And I tell them, no, I mean, that's not, first of all, that's not the solution, because there are many different solutions depending on the structure of the economy that you're studying. You cannot copy paste it. I am not trying to sell you an ideology here. I'm trying to show you that the current system has serious problems. I think for me, the best outcome is that the students become aware of these and start talking about these. And, again, students ask me, do you want us to protest on the streets? Should we become like politically active? I tell them, the politically active, this doesn't necessarily mean strictly only protesting on the streets. If you want, if that's your thing, sure, but talking about it and demanding with your votes, saying that I'm going to be voting for the person who comes up with a meaningful solution for this problem that I truly care for. And if everybody starts talking about it, if you actually make your voice heard, that's what politicians do. That's their job. I don't want all of my students to drop everything and become politicians themselves or policymakers themselves. I think what I'm trying to do is to raise awareness so the next generation does a better job than our generation in demanding action and demanding actionable policy proposals from our leaders. And in a perfect world, that would be the outcome that would make me happy.
Well, that's great. Well, just from my own conversations with students who are in a position to learn from this sort of economics instruction, I think there's a thirst for it, and I wish you the best of luck in continuing to push for this kind of economic inequality education. And I thank you so much for being here. This was a really fun and interesting conversation.
Thank you, Ralph. And maybe in a couple of years, we're going to start talking about what AI did to inequality. I'm hoping that people will listen to our colleagues like Daran Ecemoğlu and will start to design policies. Again, he's the loudest voice out there in our profession, warning us that this new technology, AI, can take inequality in the wrong direction. We still have time. We can still make it human-centric, pro-worker. We can still design it so it can create new tasks for us instead of replacing us. But these need intention. These need loud voices. And I thank you for giving me the opportunity to share some of these messages.
Well, that'll be an ongoing conversation for sure, and to be continued.
Yes,
So
thank you.
thanks, John. Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Economics for Inclusive Prosperity podcast. This podcast is a production of Economics for Inclusive Prosperity, a network of leading economists looking beyond neoliberalism and economic nationalism to answer the question, how do we build a more inclusive, more sustainable, and more prosperous economy for everyone? The co-directors of Economics for Inclusive Prosperity are Suresh Naidu, Stephanie Stancheva, Atif Mian, Ilyana Kuzhemko, and Danny Roderick. Our show is produced at Harvard University in collaboration with the Reimagining the Economy project at the Kennedy School of Government. The co-producer of this podcast is Tony Ditta. Please join us again in 2 weeks for another new episode. And if you like our content, please share us on social media and remember to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or your favorite podcasting app. See you soon.